Okay, so welcome to video 2, which is going to be showing you a few maintenance tips for your wood burner. I'm here now with our other wood burning stove, which is the Cove 2. Very nice unit. Just so that you know, this may be relevant later. This is a pre-Ecodesign 2022 model stove. Okay, so it still meets in fact it exceeds the current regulations. But there's a new version which is called the BLU version of this stove, which complies with the Eco 2022. In fact, you have a choice with Charnwood. You can either choose the regular version or you can choose the blue version. Okay, but this is our stove. For all intents and purposes, does exactly the same job as the other one. Right, maintenance then. So generally speaking, we get asked about glass cleaning, throat plate, and one we don't get asked about, but I am going to mention it, is your ash clearance. It's a lot more important than I think people realise. So we'll talk about that first. So first of all, just open her up. I've intentionally left this nice and full. How regularly should we clear our ash? Well, as you can see, I've got a bit of ash building up here. I'm just going to riddle this to drop it into the ash pan. Normally do this with the door closed. Okay. You can leave a bed of ash for your wood to burn on quite happily. It will happily burn on a bed of ash. But once it starts to get above the grate bars and starts to drop out every time you open in the door, you want to probably just drop it into the ash pan. Now, how regularly should we empty our ash pan? Well, now if I pull my ash pan out, you can see that that is brimming full, right? I don't want to allow any more ash to build up on that if at all possible. Why? What happens if I let my ash build up on that? Eventually, it'll be the case that the ash is touching the bottom of the grate bars in the stove. And that causes damage to your grate bars. I think it's because of the fact that it gets super hot because you're burning the wood, the ash is also burning, everything's really hot, and you've kind of got the grate bars inside that. And so as a result of that, you can prematurely burn through your grate and or damage your grate bars on your stove. So that's such a simple tip to bear in mind that could save you quite a bit of money. So I find that I empty my ash more or less every 2 to 3 days, depending on how regularly I'm using my fire and for how long. But that's important to do it because that will mess up your grate if you don't do that regularly. So on to the next thing. Let's talk about cleaning the glass. 3 different methods that I'm going to show you this morning. We've got some proprietary brand glass cleaner, a ceramic glass cleaner, which you're supposed to use just with a soft lint-free cloth. I've got a really cool little sponge by Shop Robax, who are the manufacturers of the glass. Show you how that works. And then we're going to use the good old-fashioned wood ash tip. So if all else fails, wood ash is what we're going to show you as well. So first of all, let's just use this proprietary brand, what's the name? Glass cleaner. Basically, you're supposed to just spray it on. That's on the stream. Right, spray it on there. Get my my cloth. I'll do it this side round, and then literally just give it a little clean. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the camera close so you can see how clean it is. You can already see that it's doing something because of the state of that. But there you go. You can see the difference there. If I just get the camera right, you've got a clean patch and a dirty patch. Hopefully you can see that on the camera. I'll open the door so you can see this side. That's probably easier. There's the bit we've just cleaned. There's some more dirty bits for the continuation of our test. Okay, so that works pretty nicely. What I do find with this sort of liquid method is that on the slightly tougher bits, you need a bit of an abrasive, okay, to get it off. So I'm going to show you a couple of alternatives if that doesn't work. Right, so let's put the camera back. Okay, hopefully that's aiming in the right direction. It'd be lovely to have a cameraman. Right. I'm just going to need to get a little, actually, let's use this. No, we won't, let's use water. Let's do it right. I'll be back in a second, I'm just going to get some water. That will be edited out through the miracle of television. So now I've got my water. just good old water, right? So what you do here, now this is something that has to be done carefully, because if you start using abrasive bits of grit on your glass, you're going to scratch your glass. So, but the idea is, you take your tissue, you dab it in water, and then you dab it in the soft wood ash, which is the wood ash that tends to be around the edges, that has just literally turned almost to fine fluff, whatever you like to call it. Okay, now then you apply this to your glass, okay, and the wood ash acts as a mild abrasive, so it will get rid of the slightly tougher bits as well. Having done that, you can see I'm getting some dirt off. Let's bring this in closer. Having done that, just dry it off. Let me show you the other side. So you can see there, that's quite successful. Yeah, works quite nicely. The wood ash that you want is this sort of soft stuff from around the edges, where it literally just goes into almost like a talcum powder sort of texture. Right, so that also works nicely. But my favourite at the moment, I'm just going to make sure that's on the right, aiming in the right direction. Okay, my favourite at the moment is this, which is made by the guys who make the glass, as I said before. All it is a sponge with a very, very fine steel wool, and you can use it dry, which is really good. You'll see that I've actually, rather naughtily, on a couple of occasions, I've used it when the glass has been hot, because it's not wet. I can do that, but you run the risk of melting your sponge. But anyway, so all you do with this one is literally dry. Just give it a little rub. And what I like about this one is, because of that mild abrasive, it handles also the tougher bits at the bottom that possibly the liquid versions don't always get off. Okay, and I'll just also take all of the fine stuff off the whole glass. I'll bring that in for a close-up. There you go. So, works a treat. This corner actually was quite a bit worse than the rest of the glass. So, but either way, all three did the job. Personally, I think the sponge is the best option, just because it's particularly easy to use. And then what you're supposed to do is, once you've cleaned your stove, is you just give it a little pat somewhere to get the dust off, which I then have to clean up, otherwise I'll be in trouble with my wife. Okay, so that's cleaning your glass. Right, next maintenance tip. So we've done glass, okay, we've done the ash, cleaning your ash regularly. Something that's important with your stove maintenance, at least annually, is to check your door rope. Okay, hopefully you can see that on the camera. Just make sure that you can. Okay, so the door rope here is the key to getting a good airtight seal on your stove, certainly in a Charnwood stove. If you don't have a good airtight seal, you're going to be letting in too much oxygen, and you're going to be burning your fuel much too quickly and not efficiently at all. So every year at least, you want to be checking that this is not hard, that it's not crusty, that it's not falling out, and you'll be able to feel it when you close the door. You'll be able to feel a nice snug fit, so that you know that it's going to do what it's supposed to do. Particularly, as I say, on these units, which are designed to be super efficient and easy to control, you want a good seal. All of your good distributors will have the rope seal. We obviously supply it as well, but you can get hold of that. And it's reasonably easy to fit it yourself. But if not, call in the guys and they'll help you out refitting that. Another thing to check is the seal that goes around the glass, for exactly the same reason as the door seal. If that's letting in air, you pretty much, you're compromising the whole airtight seal on the stove. So that also wants checking. That's three things. The last thing is probably the thing that people tend to know or tend to appreciate the least. Is that right? Is that good English? People don't always realise that they must check this. And that is the stroke plate. The throat plate, or the baffle plate as it's usually called, is a plate above your fire, and it deflects all of the heat that, instead of it going straight up your flue pipe, to circulate inside the oven and create that that kind of secondary burn and all the extra bits that we want the stove to be able to accomplish. So, but what is important to do is, from at least once a year, to check to see if this has got a build-up of ash on the top of it. If you allow ash to build up on top of that plate above, eventually over the course of time, if you really don't check it regularly, you're going to end up with quite a big pile, and then that will potentially inhibit the draw of air up your flue pipe. So you might find with other stoves, we've had situations where we've had folks that they're getting smoke coming out that's just not drawing, and it's because they haven't checked that throat plate for maybe 2 or 3 years, which I know is out of order, but that's what some folks forget to do. So let me just show you basically what's required. Each stove is different, but most of them, all you do is you lift the plate slightly, and then as you lift it, either pull it towards you or pull it to the side, and it will drop down. Right? I'm just going to grab mine now. On this one, you pull it forward. Where are you? Because it sits on a couple of little lugs, and that's just going to drop down. There we go. Okay, and as you can see, you can hear lots of dust and whatnot falling off. I've got a little bit building up on the top of mine, so that's that. Also, you might also note that I'm just brushing it off, that all of your steel or cast iron plates, they will require replacement. It's a replacement part. So a good lifespan on a throat plate is between 5 and 10 years. So at the end of the day, it will need doing. But some of the newer versions of the stoves from Charnwood, some of the Egodesign 2022 stoves, now have a vermiculite board. So provided you don't crack it, that should potentially last longer, which is even better regarding those new stoves. So there you go. I'll just brush that off, that ash off, and then just literally pop it back up again. If you don't want to get your hands dirty, the guy who comes to sweep your chimney, when he comes to sweep it, obviously that drops down. He can take it out if he wants to, but that gives him access to clean your chimney as well, which in Europe you should be doing every year. Here in South Africa there are no regulations, so folks tend to do it as they see fit. It's important to do it regularly because the ash that sits on top of your throat plate can also build up inside your flue, and over the course of time it can build up to such an extent that you can ignite a chimney fire. Okay, so that's it. We've talked about ash clearance, we've talked about glass, we've talked about rope, we've talked about your throat plate. Those are the essentials. Outside of that, from time to time, it doesn't do any harm to make sure that whatever you use as your air control, on the Charnwood system it's so easy, it's just this one button with a manifold at the back that opens flaps. But some of the stoves you'll have little doors that you open and close. Good to make sure that whatever seal is on those doors is still nice and airtight, so you're not letting any more air in than you want to let in. And that is basically it. Not an awful lot more to do other than that. So we'll close the door and invite you to tune in to the next video, which is video 3, which is where Kyle's going to start doing some of the tests on the wood, to see which wood burns better, see how well it burns. That's very interesting. So please check into video 3 if you can. It'll be on YouTube, or there may be a button around the screen now that you can click on to go to that video. Okay, thanks for watching.